Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And we are back today with Dr. Kristen Eccleston. Excited to have her here, better known as the neurodiverse teacher, helping people as an education consultant and more with people nationwide. I mean, she's here as an advocate to talk more about the work she's doing and, of course, how she can help you, your school, your community. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Yeah, I missed seeing you last week. I was actually out of town. I was in Arizona at Grand Canyon University doing a TED Talk, which was really exciting and a lot of fun. So we can even jump into that a little bit. And now I'm also getting over having norovirus. I brought that back from Arizona with me. So
there's a lot going on.
A lot
oh
going
my
on,
gosh.
right?
Okay. Well, first off, congrats on the talk. TED Talk. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
It was one of the neatest experiences. First, I have to give a big shout out and credit to Grand Canyon University. Their TEDx that they have, TEDx are independent. They're still a subsidiary of TED, what we all know to be TED Talks. And I think the majority of the TED Talks we probably see on YouTube and online are those TEDx talks, those independent ones. And Grand Canyon University is completely student run. And it is just mind-blowing how incredibly talented, how incredibly organized. I just a bunch of colleges. I don't think I had my life together at all to the level that these students have it together when I was in college. So I have to give them a lot of credit. It was myself with 7 other speakers. I had one of the Boxing Day tsunami survivors was there speaking.
Wow.
It was crazy. She was a young little girl when it happened, and she's kind of giving her story. And I can only imagine what that would have had to be an experience of having gone through that. I had Farmer Nick, who is on Netflix, and he's like a big interior designer with plants and such there. He's got a book that's out. He's a really cool guy. He was there talking. I had a burn survivor who was there. I had a young 22-year-old who had gone through like a car crash that should have killed her and survived. And she's talking about like finding joy amongst like when everything else is going, like just the people who were there and speaking, a young Spotify like just the speakers there was amazing. You sit there and you go, how did I get picked amongst all these really cool people who are there? And it was a really great experience. I got to kick it off. I was the first speaker. It's terrifying. It's funny. I don't have any problems getting up and talking to people, but trying to memorize a 10-minute speech.
Wait, memorize? There's no
memorize.
Prompter? How come there's no prompter? Or,
so
you have no cards, right? Or
apparently, no. Apparently, if you go to TED, I learned that if you go to TED, like if you go and do like just TED, not with the X, but just TED, there is a teleprompter. But TEDx typically is a memorization, and you only have 10 minutes. And I'd say my speech was roughly in that 8.5, 9-minute mark, but it was completely memorized. I can't say I did it flawlessly. That would be a lie.
Are you allowed to hold no cards?
Can I tell you a secret?
What? Tell me. Or is it on your hand? What? Tell me.
So I 100% went and put like little note, like mnemonic devices, where it, like the start of the letter type of thing, or like a couple places where I knew in the rehearsal that I just like froze and I'm like, God, what is the next part type of thing. I just like put the sentence starter on the palm of my hand, and I made sure I talked like this, like when I was giving.
Yes, as you're like, okay, yeah, and we're talking education. You're like,
right, talking like this, and then as soon as I was done, because at the end, there's people who could essentially have like a VIP ticket, and they get to mingle with you afterwards and meet with you afterwards. So as soon as I got off stage, I run backstage and I get like a wet wipe, and I'm like. That nobody could see when I met them that I had stuff written all over my hands.
And I'm sure you're not alone in that. I'm sure many people did. So you only have 10 minutes to speak. And how many speakers total was it?
There were 8 speakers in total.
Wow.
And so there's what
an honor. I mean,
it was so neat. I mean, it was just.
And by the way, is this something we can watch online? If we search Grand Canyon University, is it exclusive for the students, or how does it work?
So right now there is, I want to say the live link, because it was live, you could watch it live. I want to say the live link is still active and you can find that. But I think in the next, because it's only been a week, and like I said, it's completely student run. I mean, everything. And so I think that right now what they're doing is cleaning up all the videos, editing it down to the individual speakers. And then those will get posted online, and it'll probably be through Grand Canyon University's YouTube page. But it was just a crazy, wonderful experience. I was terrified the entire time. And again, not because getting up and speaking in front of people, I don't mind doing that. And I did theater. So it's not like I haven't had to memorize stuff before, but I
Wow.
don't think I've ever had like a 10-minute straight monologue,
No,
even when
that's
I did theater.
and I'm sure you did fantastic. I would love to see it. And how interesting. What a amazing diverse panel, neurodiverse teacher.
Right.
But like really, I mean, wow, some a tsunami survivor and then someone in the car accident. Are just curious about the car survivor accident. Are they walking? Are they
Yeah.
paralyzed? Are they like what?
She walked out of the emergency room that night. It was my husband sat with her mother and stuff. And so she was telling us the story of it and stuff. And she's like, the way and they showed pictures, like, when you're speaking, you can have like some pictures up
Yes.
behind you and stuff. That car, she was T-boned by a car, sending her car straight into like a pole. And she walked out of the emergency room that night. It was and she is so great. She's this like spunky 22-year-old who should be like a preacher. She had like a full blown on white suit and she's got like the arm movements going and she's talking about joy. And I'm like, it was a really complex topic for a 22-year-old to understand that you can have joy and you can have pain and they can happen simultaneously. Like that was essentially her talk. And I was like, I don't know that I learned that lesson until like much later in my life. I know this now, but as a
Yeah.
22-year-old, I thought like that's a really complex understanding for her to go out. And she was just very passionate about it. It was really great. And then there was a singer who's a Spotify verified singer songwriter, and she's only 18 years old. And she talked about how she was like essentially nonverbal growing up because because of anxiety. Her anxiety was just so high, and she found an outlet in music. And now she's a singer-songwriter. She sang on stage and it was amazing and it was beautiful. I was very blown away, especially by the younger people,
I
because
never
I
even
think,
heard of someone being just like no manager, no label, like just
yeah,
Spotify.
yeah. Well, you know what? I think it's like this new thing that happens. I feel like sometimes we talked
What?
about this where we missed the social media boat a little bit.
We're
And,
older, like yeah. Well, yeah. No, I get it. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
and these kids find these outlets on all the social media and it's almost like you don't need some of those middlemen that used to exist. You can kind of just promote yourself this way now.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. And
Yeah.
I have a coughing issue right now. Hold on.
Oh, I totally get it.
Tell me about your sickness. You've been sick. What's wrong with you?
So I had neurovirus. I got it. Luckily, I did not have it in Arizona. I'm assuming maybe my travels in the airport on the way back or something along those lines. But I brought back neurovirus with me, which if nobody's ever had neurovirus, it's not something I
I don't
recommend.
even
It
know
is
what
not.
it is.
It's one of those things where your stomach is bothering you on every end. You can think of your stomach bothering you. Your body aches so bad, like you didn't know your skin could hurt. You ache so bad. You have like a low grade fever. So you're hot, you're cold, you just can't get comfortable. You just are exhausted all the time. And it lasts for about 4 days. And then all of a sudden, when it's over, it's done. Like it's not lingering, it doesn't hang on, it's just done. But the last time I had it was 10 years ago. And I know I had it 10 years ago because I was pregnant with my daughter at the time and ended up going into preterm labor because of it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I don't recommend it. Try to avoid norovirus at all costs if you can.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're feeling better and
Thank
you're here with us today as the neurodiverse teacher, not norovirus teacher.
Yeah. I like that.
Sorry. Oh
That
my
was
God.
a good one. That was a good one.
All right, sorry. What did you want to share with us for today? I mean, this is a lot.
I know there's a lot. So now everybody's up to speed on where I was and why I was missing last week. But one of the things I wanted to share was a story that came out of the TED Talk that it was just moving and kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And then I had a topic I thought we could focus on. But the first story was I shared with you at the end, we were allowed to kind of network. And some of it was just networking, getting to meet people. And that was fantastic. I think networking is always a great idea. But I had a girl who wasn't part of that kind of like VIP, meant to stay after, who waited around to the very, very end with her mother. She was 18 years old. And she came up to me and she told me like that my story was her story and that is what she had experienced going through school. And now that's why she was in college becoming a teacher, because a lot of my message was for future educators on what you need to do for individuals who learn differently. And she told me her story. And of course, I'm just bawling, crying to hear this. And it just hit me that sometimes I forget that my story is other people's story too. And I was very grateful to have a platform that hopefully will help people understand that if you were someone who ever learned differently or felt that you learned differently, that you're not alone, and that by no means does that ever determine what you are capable of achieving or what you can do. That sometimes it was just you weren't provided the opportunities that worked for you, and then it made you feel a certain way, but it is not actually a true reflection of what you were capable of doing. So I was so
Wow.
grateful that, you always think if at least one person got something out of what I had to say, then it was worth doing. And at least I got to walk away knowing at least one person got something out of what I had to say. So I was really grateful for that. So if she ever hears this, I'm incredibly grateful for her for sticking around and coming and speaking with me.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Wow. Oh, that's so sweet.
Well, thank you. And
Ah,
that's what made me think we could talk about masking today. And I'm not sure if you have ever heard of this, because I think that this is a valid topic, especially in the workplace too. This concept of masking for people who are neurodiverse. And masking is this concept that you do things to hide the fact that you're neurodiverse. You pick up in your youth,
mm-hmm.
you pick up that something is not right about you. Sometimes it's not even that that you're neurodiverse. A lot of people don't know that they have a diagnosis. They haven't officially been diagnosed, but they maybe suspect, or they've realized like, hey, I'm not picking up on this the same way other people are picking up on it, or what's wrong with me. And you start
Yeah.
to mask it. And sometimes maybe you're that person who feels like I blend into every crowd because you can almost take on the vibe or the personality of everybody that you meet and different things. But is it really your authentic self, or are you masking because there's that rejection piece? Because one of the biggest things that come in with people who are neurodiverse is this significant sensitivity to rejection. I mean, I don't think anybody likes being rejected. Being rejected doesn't feel great, right?
Mm-mm.
But when people are neurodiverse, you tend to have a higher level of sensitivity to it. You're more aware of it. It tends to be like you're that person who goes, I said, hey. And they were like, hey. And then you think about the weird way that they said hey to you for like 4 days straight type of thing, because you're that sensitive about it. And then you mask because you don't want that feeling of rejection. And that can happen in the workplace. And that can ultimately lead to a burnout. It can
Mm-hmm.
lead to burnout because you're trying to mask
Mm-hmm.
what the significant issue is, that you don't speak up for yourself. You don't let your employer know that, hey, these things are bothering me, or, maybe
Mm-hmm.
this project you gave me is too much on my plate on top of the other projects I'm currently working on. Because a lot of times masking can lead to people pleasing and trying to do or avoid anything that could essentially give you some of those negative feelings.
Got it. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people pleasing going on. And you just reminded me, there was someone at my old job that always said hello weirdly or good morning. And I'm like, is it me? Is it them? And I would sit there and think about it. Like, and then it took me time and I realized, oh, that's just really how they speak. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
me, but I started taking it personal. Like, all right, he doesn't really like me. He's one of my bosses. Like, he's really, but that's a good point. Our body language or the way we speak, it's, yeah. And then you start doubting yourself.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, like a lot of some people right off the bat just realize, oh, that's Joe. That's just how he is, no, whatever. I'm not gonna take it as way. And then other people go, is it me? What have I done? Have I said, does Joe just not like me? And then we get, what was my interactions that have looked like with Joe? And you know what I mean? And it almost starts to consume you.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes hinder your relationships with other people because it consumes you so much. But really, if you get down to the core of it, it's this fear of rejection. It's this idea of what have I done wrong? Especially people who are neurodiverse tend to get a lot of negative messages, especially in their younger years and even into adulthood. And so I think we kind of get conditioned to automatically assume it's us
Yeah.
versus the other person.
True.
That's just how they are. It's us who have somehow done something.
Wow. All right. Interesting. Thank you so much for that. By the way, just remind everyone how we can reach out to you.
Absolutely. And I don't think I mentioned either what I do. So for people who are just listening to us for the first time, you can find me at www.theneurodiverseteacher.com. And I am an education consultant who focuses on neurodiversity and mental health, both in the K through 12 and the corporate space, meaning that I help schools with developing programs for students with mental health needs. I help families specifically of students who have mental health needs and need specific supports and services. And I help the corporate space and helping them to create programs for their employees who are either neurodiverse or dealing with mental health, so that essentially your leaders in your company have a better understanding of what neurodiversity and mental health in the workplace needs to look like.
Perfect. Thank you. And what else did you have on tap for us today? There's always so much to talk about with you.
I know, I feel like I always have a million different topics, and just kind of bouncing off my head of what I just said too, for people who are listening and maybe they're wondering, why are you talking about mental health and neurodiversity in the same thing? Aren't those two different things? And you would be right. They're not mutually exclusive. You don't have to have one with the other,
Okay.
but individuals who are neurodiverse tend to have higher levels of mental health needs. There tends to be more anxiety and depression. They're not mutually exclusive topics. You do not have to have one to have the other, but oftentimes people who are neurodiverse deal with higher levels of, especially of anxiety and depression. Anxiety can even be something that oftentimes masks neurodiversity. You'll hear people who are ADHD but they're always on time and they get their stuff turned in or, submitted on time. And people go, well, you can't have ADHD because, you don't have any of these traits, but it's the anxiety. And that goes back to that masking we were talking about. It's the anxiety that's really driving that ability to get things in on time or be to work on time. And again, that can lead to some of those levels of burnout. So you might have employees who have not even been diagnosed or not aware of it, but are really struggling with that anxiety and depression factor. But a lot of it has to do with that neurodiversity susceptibility that they have or those diagnoses. Sometimes they're aware of it, sometimes they're not. But it's important, I think, for employers to know that mental health is obviously important for everybody, regardless if you're neurodiverse or you're not neurodiverse, but definitely something to keep in mind for your neurodiverse employees, because there is that higher level of susceptibility, just given that they tend to go hand in hand. Again, I know I'm being repetitive. I'm beating a little bit of a dead horse here, but if you've gotten a lot of negative messages throughout your life, there tends to be a little bit of trauma related there, a little bit of high anxiety, especially if you're somebody, and most people who are ADHD got told they were lazy and they weren't working hard enough. And now they try to overcompensate for it in their adulthood. And they don't always know where those boundaries are. And again, that leads to that burnout. And if you want productive employees who are going to, show up, feel valued, and do what they need to do every day, you don't want them to get to that point of burnout, or you're not going to get that quality work that's going to help your company succeed.
Thank you. All right. By the way, also, you with your background, just important for people to realize you have a very diverse background. Would you mind just sharing your credentials with us? It's just important to remind people.
Absolutely. So I do have a crazy background. I started my life in public relations, in mass media, and then from there I became a special education teacher for a very long time. Ultimately, I got my doctorate in mind, brain, and teaching from Johns Hopkins University, transitioned out to be an education consultant, and my focus while I was getting my doctorate was on mental health, and especially in the education setting. And so that is really kind of my niche area of what I focus on. I had no idea when I started down that path about 8 years ago. I knew there was a need, but had no idea the need that would exist after the pandemic. So it's just something I continue to chug along on. And every day I hope you feel like you're working on trying to make things better, but every day I feel like it's just getting more intense, and the need is definitely higher as the days go by, unfortunately.
Days go by. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right. The neurodiverseteacher.com. Don't forget that's who we're talking to here. She's an education consultant and as a mental health leader and expert. And you're working with those to help create, spaces that, continue to be neurodiverse. As a keynote speaker, as she just talked about, she can be hired for that as well. And she works with but mostly K through 12, right? For mental health programming with all different districts.
Yes, nationwide. I even consult at times too with other countries. I've consulted with the Netherlands. I've consulted with Australia. This is not just an issue that is happening here in the States. This is a global concern that is happening, especially with our youth and mental health and education. So there's a lot to be said and to be learned from one another. And I find as I sit down with people from other countries that our problems are very similar to what they are experiencing, but it's very interesting how they are handling things from country to country versus how we're handling things. And I don't know that any one way is the right way. And I don't know that anybody has found the right answer, but we're all trying to approach the issues in the same, in different ways, but we still are dealing with the same issues and concerns. So definitely a lot to say on a global collaboration there as well.
Aw, and also on social media, you can find her on Instagram, LinkedIn, obviously, Facebook
Mhm.
as well. And just to point out, Dr. Eccleston's knowledge of the brain is unmatched. This is from a special education attorney. She is a wealth of knowledge and has the skill and demeanor to make her points poignant and impactful. Dr. Eccleston's talent for understanding the mental health needs of adolescents in the education setting is unprecedented. This is a high school principal. Her passion and dedication to student success are beyond compare, and she is a true game changer for the education community. Someone else mentioned, look out, world, Dr. Eccleston is here to make a difference. And she is. Yeah, it's
Well, thank
great.
you.
I mean, how did you get chosen to speak at the TEDx at the Grand, what is it, Grand
At
Canyon
Grand Canyon University.
University?
It was an opportunity that came across my desk somehow, and I applied, and it was multiple rounds. Like, you had to go through submitting an initial proposal. You had to meet with a group, and then you had to meet with I ended up having a speaker advocate
Mm-hmm.
who was there on site, and they got to essentially select the person that they wanted to work with. And I think I just felt fortunate that this student felt that my message was strong enough that she selected me, and then she worked with me for several months and getting everything fine-tuned, and last weekend was kind of the culmination of that. So it was definitely several rounds, and I feel really honored. I still feel like it's kind of a dream. I know a lot of people feel very driven to want to participate and do a TEDx, and if you get the opportunity, I definitely say go for it. It's definitely a great experience. But I think I was just very fortunate that somebody found there to be value in what I had to say and believed in my message and allowed me to get up on a stage and talk for 10 minutes at everybody.
Yeah, this is awesome, awesome. And do you have any other things planned coming up? Any other events like that or keynote speaking?
I do. I'm going out to Oregon this
Oh
summer.
my gosh.
I'm speaking there at a conference. I have a couple virtual conferences that are coming up. The company that I do education advocacy out of, we have a conference coming up in October, and I'm going back to Wes Bergman's television show, The Blocks, in June. So I do have quite a few things coming up on my plate here in the future.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. And to sum up for today, how did you want to leave off with your listeners and viewers today?
I just want to leave off, we're kind of getting to a close. I always think of my life goes in years of school years instead of the January year. And so to me, the year is coming to a close as far as school years go. I think that's just the teacher in me for so many years. I look at it that way. And so as we go into the summer, it's kind of a reset. I hope everybody has the opportunity, even if you don't live your life that way, to go on a vacation, enjoy your time, have that time to recover from any kind of burnout, and really just take in the moment and be in the moment of either your friends, your family, whoever you might be with, and take that opportunity to reset, because the world is crazy right now, and I think we all need that. So please take that time to do that. You deserve it. I know we're all kind of stressed and working hard right now.
We are. Oh my goodness. And again, thanks for being here. One more time, remind us how we can contact you.
Absolutely easiest way is to check me out on my website, www.theneurodiverseteacher.com. From there, you can get my email and all my different social media links. Connect with me. I'd love to hear from you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hope you have a fantastic day and
You
feel
too.
better. Are
Thank
you all done from the norovirus or just
I'm
still?
feeling better. I'm on the upside. Yeah.
All right. That's a good place to be. Have a great
Yeah.
day, sweetheart. And to all of our listeners, stay tuned. We'll be right back with more.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home.
that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.